All right then. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is November 29th, 2020. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority being held in Albany and also remotely. We have attending Chairman Bradley by telephone.
Yes, I'm here.
We have Commissioners Ford and Fan, who are both participating by video. We have staff in attendance, General Counsel Meyerhoff by video. We have Deputy Commissioner Roberts by telephone.
I'm here, thanks.
And myself, Secretary Downey, in the Albany offices. We have 3 items on today's calendar. They are all requests from Council's office for summary orders of suspension. The first item is agenda number 01707N. It's Queens TW 1323431. The licensee is Just Karaoke, Inc.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Office of Counsel submits the subject licensee, Just Karaoke, Inc., which is located at 157-16 Northern Boulevard in Flushing, New York, which is currently a yellow zone, to members of the authority to consider an emergency order suspension of their retail on-premise liquor license pursuant to Section 401, subsection 3. Just Karaoke, Inc. was issued a TW license recently on June 10th, 2020, to operate with karaoke and recorded music. The sole principal is Jay Du Yi, who's the president, is supposed to be self-managed. The establishment is located in a business area. The maximum occupancy currently is 74, since they only have an expired public assembly license. But normally, the basement area cellar is 189 and 180 on the first floor. On Friday, November 27th at 10:30 p.m., which is after the curfew, the task force, including the NYPD Vice Squad, conducted an inspection at the licensed premises and found 8 karaoke rooms out of 10 occupied. One room had 12 patrons at one table, which is in violations of the restrictions imposed on licensed premises in a designated yellow zone. There were 32 patrons on the premises in total. Both the licensee and the manager were not wearing proper face coverings. And the manager admitted that there was no food available for sale except for nuts and packaged shrimp crackers. And there was no food receipts, and they did not have a New York City food protection certificate, which is required to serve food in New York City. The licensee has been charged with being in violation of Executive Order 202.4, 202.61, 202.16, 202.52, 202.68, failure to supervise, and failure to comply with governmental regulations, in that they were also in violation of the mayor's executive order. In addition to the executive orders, the licensee is being charged with multiple fire and safety codes. Now, prior to that, on November 24th at 1 o'clock in the morning, well after curfew, because of numerous complaints, the NYPD Vice Squad went to the location to conduct an inspection. When they arrived, the primary door that was labeled for Just Karaoke was locked. But the police knew from previous jobs at adjoining locations that there was another door to access the lower level. That door was open, and when they entered, they heard music playing. They met with the licensee, Mr. Yi, and another older woman whom he identified as a manager, both of which who were not wearing masks. They yelled, "Please, sorry, we're sorry, we're sorry." And there were about 31 total persons divided in 5 separate rooms. One room had about 15 people inside it with cups and glasses all over the table. The other rooms had between 3 and 4 patrons seated inside, and most patrons were not wearing masks. The police did not see any food service areas, nor did they see any food in any of the rooms. The licensee has been charged with being in violation of Executive Order 202.61, 202.68, 202.74, 202.52, along with failure to supervise. Additionally, the police also observed 2 unsecured propane tank heaters inside the location in violation of local regulations and fire codes, along with multiple unmounted fire extinguishers, which are also in violation of the New York State fire codes. Attached are my exhibits, which show photographs that were taken on both visits. And the board should also be aware that they've only granted their license in June of 2020, and there's no prior history. Now, this type of conduct is in violation of the restrictions imposed on the licensed premises located in the yellow zone, including consuming beverages without food and patrons inside the establishment well after the 10 p.m. curfew. Is exactly the conduct the EOs and the SLA and Department of Health guidelines were designed to prevent. It is clear the licensee cannot be trusted with this license. The licensee himself was warned by the police department on November 24, 2020, for violating both the governor and the mayor's executive orders, and therefore was already on notice. So based upon the investigation report and the police referral reviewed, it is clear that this establishment poses a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare. And the members can have no confidence that this conduct will not continue. And therefore, Council's office respectfully requests that the members summarily suspend this license. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, in addition to being warned about the curfew and improper operations on the 24th, and being found just 3 days by the police, and being found just 3 days later to be doing the same thing, the licensee can't comply with the food requirement for serving in this environment. They weren't, and they don't have a permit to. So I don't see how this licensee can be trusted to comply with the law.
All right, with that then, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
Mike, you said something about the capacity.
Yes,
So you said that their PA license expired, and so therefore by default they only have 74.
that's
But
correct.
then if their PA hadn't expired, they're at 180.
180 on the first floor and then 189 in the cellar.
So 180 plus 189?
That's my understanding. That's what's on the certificate of occupancy that was filed with the
So the total capacity, if their PA license were valid, would be 369?
my understanding, correct?
Okay. But right now, under the yellow zone is 25%?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
So currently, they don't have the valid certificate to serve food. Is that correct, Michael?
The information I was provided, yes, correct, yes.
So would we think that they would have had that? I mean, they just got their license a couple of months ago. Would they have had it, whatever they had to have, they would have had that then in order for us to issue them a license?
Well, they indicate that they have all the necessary and requisite permits and license their application. They said that they did.
Okay. Nonetheless, they weren't serving food, so they were non-bona fide regardless.
Right.
So, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Chairman Bradley, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, then I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on the evidence presented by council, it's clear that this licensed premise cannot be relied upon to follow the governor's executive order surrounding COVID-19. This location is therefore an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I vote to summarily suspend this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford.
Based on evidence presented by council, and the fact that this particular premises has numerous health and safety violations above and beyond any executive order violations, I find them to be a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, and I vote to summarily suspend.
Chairman Bradley.
Based on council's presentation, I find that this licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, and I vote to summarily suspend.
All right, the next item I have is 017070 Kings OP 1313546. Licensee is New York Pizza Cafe and Spanish Food Restaurant Corp.
Good afternoon, Margarita Marsico. On behalf of Council's office, I'm requesting that the members issue an order of summary suspension as to New York Pizza Cafe and Spanish Food Restaurant Corp. located at 1485 Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn. This premise was previously summarily suspended by the members on August 22nd, 20. The original agenda number was 2020-01035AA. According to the paperwork in our files, when Investigator Davis went in, he observed 3 patrons inside consuming alcohol. He observed 2 employees, including the owner, also drinking beer. And there were 6 people inside, none of whom were wearing masks, and there was no food being served. The licensee in that matter submitted an offer of $10,000, and he paid the money on September 3rd and was able to reopen. So that was the last incident that we have in our files. And then now what occurred was that the NYPD Vice SLA COVID Task Force did a compliance check on November 28th at 10:24 p.m. They set up surveillance in front of the location, and they found that the exterior of the premise was covered with blue tarps. They observed a man opening gates and standing outside as if he were looking out for people. The investigators approached the tarped area. Investigator Stravali was able to pull up the roll down gate with a metal chain that was only accessible from the inside. It was only accessible from the outside. So if this lookout ever got scared by somebody while he was standing outside and walked away, all those people would be trapped inside because they would have no way of opening this roll down gate from the inside of the premises. The investigator went in. They observed, in the report it says 3 patrons, but according to Investigator Stravali, I communicated with him today. He said there were 5 patrons that were standing virtually on top of each other by the bar. The front door was locked from the inside. The owner, once again, was present. I don't know if he was drinking this time, but he wasn't wearing a mask. There were 20 people inside, approximately total. There was no food on the tables. It looks from the photographs like they have buckets of beer. I saw one of the tables that looked like there was a bucket there. But they all appear to be drinking, seated and drinking alcohol and not eating. There were no, the licensee was not able to offer any liquor receipts, and there were a myriad of fire code violations, which further the concern that Investigator Stravali expressed to me that this premise was a fire trap when he went. They were locked in a place where there was a propane gas tank. There had flames going with no flame permit. There were unmounted fire extinguishers, uninspected fire extinguishers, defective exit signs, open circuit breakers, fire extinguishers that were not inspected, no panic bar on the front door. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to get out anyway. There was illegal door and hardware deadbolt. The maximum occupancy in this premise is 74. I asked the investigator if the licensee had any explanation for what they found there, and he really had no defense. He had some gripes about his prior settlement with us, but he was asked about the food. He showed the investigator a couple of wings that were thrown in the garbage. Apparently they do have a permit to sell food, but there's no clear evidence that they were selling food. But he did show the investigator some chicken wings in the garbage can. So this licensee really has not learned his lesson. He's present again in a fire trap. So for this reason, we're requesting that the members issue a summary suspension.
Thank you, Margarita. This is a location where, and then we're starting to see this increasingly, especially with the 10 p.m. curfew, where in an effort to evade detection of EO violations like curfew violations, the licensees are actually putting their patrons at even greater risk than just getting COVID because they've created fire hazards by rolling down gates and closing people in.
All right, with that, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
Margarita, I looked at my notes from the previous suspension and they were licensed in November of 1996. Is that correct?
I'm gonna have to check the licensing files again because when I looked at it now, it said the license was approved in January of 2019. I don't know,
Yeah, I have January 17, 2019 in my notes.
January 2019?
Mm-hmm. January 17, 2019.
Okay, I must have misread something. Okay, thank you very much. No other questions.
Chairman Bradley, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
All right, then I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on the evidence presented by Council Marsico, this location is an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare. It's unfortunate that they have already paid and been suspended before and continue to violate the governor's executive orders. I vote to summarily suspend again this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
I vote to summarily suspend for the same reasons. In addition to all the EO violations, they kind of pale comparison to all of the safety and fire code violations and how they put all those people at risk by locking them in a place with so many fire code violations. So I vote to suspend.
And Chairman Bradley.
Based on council's presentation, I vote to summarily suspend. It's clear that this licensee is once again a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare.
All right, then the next item I have is 01707P, Queens RW 1291896. The licensee is Tippling Inc.
Good afternoon, members. This is Kayla O'Donnell on behalf of Council's office. Council's office is seeking an emergency order of summary suspension for a licensee who's shown a blatant disregard for the COVID-19 executive orders, as well as the alcoholic beverage control law and the New York City Fire Code. On Friday night, SLA investigator Cervalli and the task force visited the licensed premises at 11:20 p.m., which is well after the governor's 10 p.m. closing curfew. Before even going inside, 2 violations of the alcohol beverage control law and New York State Fire Code were found. First, the front windows were covered with red curtains concealing the activity inside. Second, the front door was locked with a deadbolt. Patrons were locked inside and investigators had to wait until a patron arrived to pick up takeout, at which point they were able to enter. I did call and speak to Investigator Cervalli, and he indicated that he wasn't able to enter before this patron arrived because the door was locked, and that this person was a food delivery person. They knocked on the door, nobody answered, so they had to actually call and say they were there for Grubhub and they were there to pick up food, and that's when they came and let this person in, and Cervalli and investigators followed him in. So they are screening people to make sure, that they're not investigators or enforcement. And as Gary mentioned, the purpose of the curtains blocking the view inside and the locked door is to try to avoid detection, especially of curfew violations. And in doing so, they are putting people in risk in the event of an emergency. So they're putting business and money over the lives of their patrons. So this licensee is located in the yellow zone, which requires operating at a 25% or less capacity inside, and the tables are required to have 4 or less patrons per table. 25% capacity for this licensee would have been 18 patrons. However, investigator Cervalli found 24 patrons inside, so they were over that 25%. Additionally, as the photos in the record before you depict, there were 4 tables with more than 4 patrons seated at them. There was a table of 8 and 3 tables of 5. The patrons were not socially distanced. The tables were on top of each other. They were not situated 6 feet or more apart. Again, these findings were made over an hour and 20 minutes after the 10 p.m. curfew. Further, as the report and photos in the record before you depict, there were 5 employees not wearing any sort of face covering at all. Given these findings, the licensee is being charged with violating Executive Orders 202.16, 202.41, 202.68 and 202.74. Additionally, during the inspection, investigator Cervalli spoke to an individual named Minghao Zhen, who stated that he was part owner and that he paid $75,000 for the business with his cousin, Xing Ren. Xing Ren is the only principal listed on this license. When she arrived during the inspection, she also admitted that her cousin is a part owner. She told the investigator that it was $150 to open the business and that they each put $75,000 or so in. Given these admissions, the licensee is being charged with availing its license to Minghao Zhang. Additionally, investigator Cervalli observed and photographed bottles of whiskey and tequila behind the bar. Those photos are in the record before you. These beverages are prohibited to be kept or sold by the licensee, as it holds a RW license, restaurant wine, and can only sell beer, cider, or wine. Notably, as the disapproval letter in the record before you depicts, the licensee applied for an on-premises license to be able to sell liquor, but it was disapproved in February of 2018 because the licensed premises is located within 200 feet of a school or church. So the licensee was undoubtedly aware that it wasn't allowed to sell liquor because it applied to try to sell liquor and was denied, and then apparently decided it was going to do so anyway. Further, pre-mixed alcoholic beverages were found inside the refrigerator, which is another violation of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Law. Furthermore, the licensee was also found to have numerous fire code violations, including 2 obstructed fire extinguishers, an uninspected fire extinguisher, a defective emergency exit light, and no flame-proofing affidavit for the curtains. Given all the foregoing violations, the licensee has failed to properly supervise the premises. This licensee has clearly shown it cannot be trusted to follow any laws, let alone the executive orders designed to save lives during a global pandemic that hit New York City especially hard. As such, an emergency order of summary suspension is required to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the patrons, employees, their families, and the entire community. Thank you.
Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
Kayla, did you say when they were licensed?
March 9th, 2016.
No other adverse history?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Hi, based on evidence presented by Council O'Donnell, it's clear that this location is an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford.
For the same reasons, I vote to summarily suspend as well. Again, we have a licensee locking people inside with numerous other health and fire code safety violations, so I vote to summarily suspend.
And Chairman Bradley.
Based on council's presentation, I vote to summarily suspend. It's clear this licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare.
All right, Chairman, I have nothing else on the calendar. Is there anything else you have?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you all once again for working on Sunday. It's greatly appreciated, and that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, members and team.